All right, so today I am folding a pattern called Dapple, and I've got all my tools here in front of me, like the bone folder. That's it. I went ahead and prepared my grid in advance because I'm only going to be folding here for about an hour, and I didn't want that entire hour to be consumed with the grid. But now we're going to get to see how I fold a challenging new pattern. And actually one of my students was commenting on this when I announced like what pattern I was going to do. She was like, yeah, that base pattern, knotted web with the closed triangles and then the closed hexagons all alternating sides, that one's hard enough, and you're going to make it a mixed depth hexagon? And yeah, I am, but I'm also going to space it a little bit further apart. The triangles are going to stay close together, but the hexagon's going to be a little further apart. And if it was one spacing closer, it would get a bit flagstone-y. But we're going to avoid that. And I'm going to go ahead and jump in. I have the crease pattern on my second screen. I can also see the chat. So feel free to ask questions, make comments, whatever you like. And good morning, Nancy. And I'm starting off with these triangle twists. And what I did is I paid attention to how the pleats of this triangle interact with the center of the paper. And I projected that out to the corners. And you can see this particular triangle start in quite a few of my Advent of Test tutorials, particularly from 2023. Day 21 was knotted web, the pattern that I'm basing this new one off of. And so today, like I was mentioning earlier, this is a pretty difficult pattern with just the normal open hexagons. Taking it to the mixed depth hexagons is going to be an added challenge. We're going to have a bunch of double depth pleats crossing single depth pleats and vice versa. So this might be one where you see me struggle. I've been folding these tessellations for, let's see, since 2017-ish. That would be 8 years. Time flies. So there's not, I mean, I can always find more patterns that I will struggle with, but typically the ones that I'm folding on the live streams are relatively straightforward for me. This one might not be. Okay. So I've got my central triangles, except for that last one on the back. And these are going to be mixed depth hexagons. And I have single depth pleats so far. So that means that I'm going to have double depth pleats. Well, this will be the single depth pleat of the hexagon. And I'm coming 3 spaces out, and the next pleat is double depth. So if this goes smoothly, you might even see me finish the pattern today, because this mixed depth hexagon eats up so much grid that I'm only going to get one set of repeats of the center on this pattern. And that is an unfriendly overlap. Let's see what exactly we can do about that. Okay. All right. Okay, so one of the pleats. I'm just going to reorder it. Could play around and find out exactly what kind of compound wrap could make that work out, but it's easier to just reorder and move on. And one of the cool things about origami tessellation design, like being able to design your own patterns, is that you start seeing so many connections between different patterns. Like this one, I wanted to fold it to include in Tessellation Academy in December, I think it's going to be, that this crease pattern will come out. But there's also a lot of connections to what we'll be talking about in Tessellation Academy next month, and connections to what we'll be talking about the month after also. So this is kind of a stretched out version of the hexagons and triangles threefold tiling. And if you don't know what that means, it means that there's only hexagons and triangles, and the hexagons are laid out in a way that they can be at most threefold rotationally symmetric. And the stretched out bit is coming from the fact that these are mixed depth hexagons, not standard regular hexagons. Ooh, that smeared onto not quite the grid line when it was folded. I'll have to watch out for that in the next one. And this connects to Tessellation Academy because next month we're talking about mixed depth rhombus twists. And we're particularly talking about them in the context of some tilings. Well, the beginner tutorial is on a tiling that has only rhombus twists. And even that, like, it's the same arrangement as the just rhombus twists with regular rhombi. But we see these mixed depth rhombi able to be substituted in to these positions because you can take the tiling, the arrangement of shapes that you're working in, and just stretch it out. It turns out you can do that for more complicated arrangements of shapes too, including this one. Like this one is taking each of these hexagons and stretching it out in 3 directions while leaving the other 3 sides the same as they were before. So there's always something interesting to get into. And then the other thing I was talking about, the month after that in Tessellation Academy, is on the hexagons and triangles 3-fold tiling, this tiling that I'm using right here. So lots to explore that's related to this pattern coming up in Tessellation Academy. And for context, for those of you watching this recording a long time later, I'm talking about April and May 2025, which, just because it's not those months yet, or those months are long past, doesn't mean that you can't see the tutorials and files that I'm talking about. Tessellation Academy is a membership where you get access to the entire portal for however long you're a member, not just to the content that comes out specifically while you're a member. If that doesn't make sense, ask me a question. Oh, Nancy, I'm glad you like the pattern. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier on, I was pretty aware when I was designing it that I could have chosen for these hexagons to be closer to the triangles and get a touching of flagstone-ness between the triangle and the mixed depth hexagon. But I knew that I would have a lot of things running into each other if I did that. I actually did do that version with knotted web also. I call it knotted web tight, and it was a royal pain to fold. And even here I've got a pleat stuck under and a pleat over top that are exactly on top of each other. So I like this spacing. It's going to make it a lot easier to fold the pattern. And one of the cool things you can see, a feature that's going to show up a lot in the backlighting, is that the back of these mixed depth hexagons is this great big triangle with 3 grid spacings per edge. And just cool fun fact, that's probably going to be the most salient feature of this pattern in backlighting, because it's a very clear shape with only a single layer of paper. And here, yep. I'm going to be running this pleat back through the existing twists. Good thing all of these twists, once they rotate and are squashed, are still aligned with the background grid. That triangle, that looks like the mixed depth hexagon on the back side. So it's kind of wild that you have something that's hexagon on one side and a triangle on the other. But that's how it shakes out. And really we just see it as a triangle because the other pleats are far enough away that they don't cut anything out of the hole. And I'm not pressing too hard in this area with a lot of layers. You're welcome, Chris. Because it is really thick, there is a lot going on, and I don't need to. So I don't need to stress the paper in that area more than just the pleat going through. You'll notice I haven't been saying this, but I've been putting in these two triangles for like in between each of these mixed depth hexagons. And those are copies of the triangles in the center. So we're already getting back to repeats at the center, which is pretty nice. And here, open things up. This single depth pleat is just going to the triangles, so I'll leave it flat for now. Open up some more. And reinstate the pleats from my previous hexagon. That one got a bit off grid by the time it got further out. And this one really did not want to lay down flat, but it needs to be flat so I can cross it with another. And ta-da. So this has been the easy part. And we're gonna see how that extrapolates to the next ring around the center as soon as I get these sets of triangle twists in place. And another set of triangles over here. I didn't set them up while I was on the other side because the pleat overlap was less friendly for it. And I could really start from either side, but I'll start from the same side that I started on originally. And how can I tell? The grid lines are slightly harsher on this side of the paper. It's not really something that I expect you to be able to see over the video. And also this side has the right-handed twists. So rotating this way around. So next up, I'm going to start here and work my way that way. I'm going to set up a triangle with a single depth pleat coming into contact with this double depth pleat. And the next twist is going to be on the other side, so I'm doing a compound wrap. And while I'm over here, I may as well set up the triangle that will also feed into that new mixed depth hexagon and lay that down flat on this side. So now I have more of my pleats in place. So far, so good. And I'll come back and squash that triangle. And now that's a double depth pleat. That's going to lead to another mixed depth hexagon. Okay, I want to work on these guys. I want to start kind of with these, the single depth pleats, and see where that takes me. Finish out these triangles. Got lucky with that pleat. If it was one space further that way, it would have run through the mixed depth hexagon instead of under it. That's not a friendly overlap. So I'm going to compound wrap it. Come back to this guy. First squash that triangle. Makes bigger surface to work on to resolve this overlap. And yeah, that's a lot of overlap in there. Not particularly friendly overlap. Would want to do compound wraps but tried that earlier on and it wasn't coming out particularly smoothly. And then I have my two triangles in here. You can start to see that I'm going to have this pleat and this pleat, and eventually there's going to be a third pleat going across all of the other pleats that are already in place. This is, yeah, this is the challenge. And it's kind of mandated by the tiling. If I open this guy up, there's my single depth, there's my double depth. I have another double depth in here, kind of crossing over that guy. What does that end up doing? We'll all find out. If you haven't noticed, this is the challenging part. Okay. Can I get these pleats to lay flat? Unclear. I can create enough of a platform that's flat enough to squash in the air. And I'll come back with the bone folder later. And the two triangles. That's far enough from the 3D area that I can go ahead and squash with the bone folder. This pleat is going away because I'm going to cross it here and make a triangle wrap. I often say to my students, like, we want to have the minimum pleat overlaps necessary. And that does not mean few pleat overlaps. Like we're gonna run into times, especially as we fold more repeats of things, where we have many pleat overlaps. And that's okay. We just need to know how to deal with them and how to keep moving forward. Okay. So the next hexagon is on this side, off of this double depth pleat. And it's going to have triangle wrap over here. and a triangle wrap over here. And it's always a question, which way is going to be easier to get these, which order is going to be easier to get these pleats in place. And are they actually in the right place is the next question. And which ones are not? Because that last one still was in the right place. Okay. Time for squashing some triangles. And that's all kinds of crazy wrapped. So need to unbundle a bunch of this while keeping the pleats that I'm crossing. This one is going to set up a triangle and triangle wrap. Unfortunately, that triangle wrap is headed straight through that hexagon we just folded. But that's the best that we can do at the moment. And that's a very unfriendly overlap, but I'm going to deal with that in a moment after I deal with this triangle. It's kind of tempting to do the mixed depth on this side first. Might just take care of that compound wrap that I wanted. And then get this guy in place. And this is the time again where I'm going to just 3D that area. And I'm making sure that everything I'm squashing over is happy. But that stuff down below, or down in there, does not have to be happy yet. Just the ones that I'm squashing. some triangles. And you can start seeing the border of the final piece here. I decided to leave it a nice big border because it has nice big chunky twists. The other benefit I get from spacing these guys further out than in knotted web is that my pleats are not laying on top of each other. They're all in their little separate area. And that's going to be easier to press flat later. And then this pleat goes away with a triangle wrap. And I get this double depth pleat, and that guy runs through, and then the other single depth pleat. And now we're back to a flat state. So one of the patterns that I'm going to teach in Tessellation Academy in the Hexagons and Triangles threefold tiling month, which is in May, is how to not go through this whole width at the same time, but instead only do half of it at a time. Unfortunately, that doesn't really fly with open twists, especially mixed depth open twists. But if you're using closed hexagon twists, there is a way to avoid a lot of the overlaps. You're just going to be going around more times. And here we go again. Gonna have triangle wrap in there. Triangle wrap in here. And I've been talking about Tessellation Academy, but I haven't said where you can find this stuff. And it's at training.gatheringfolds.com/academy. Or if you just go to training.gatheringfolds.com and go to the store page, you can see all of the courses that I offer. Tessellation Academy is the one that's updated most often, since it has 2 tutorials, an Ethereum design session, and 8 crease patterns, and tiling diagrams, and design trees every month. I want to pull this pleat before I squash the triangle. I think so. And again, air folding this one because there probably is a way to lay all those pleats flat down under here, but I would be undoing it immediately as soon as I put it in, and that's kind of stressful on the paper. So gonna work with what I've got. And right there, I was more thinking to myself, I know where that pleat needs to go and make the triangle wrap. Then I was thinking, I know where that pleat needs to come from. So both references are valid. And this way that the pleats were overlapped, I'd said in the first ring around the center that was a less friendly way, but you can still start folding your triangles on it regardless of how friendly it is. Little water break. I've got 2 sets of parallel pleats to go. Okay. I'm gonna need triangle wrap here. And triangle wrap up here. And I'm looking for that characteristic shape of the mixed depth hexagon twist, the 3-fold mixed depth hexagon twist, which is 1 in, 1 out, 2 in, 2 out, 1 in, 1 out, 2 in, 2 out, as I'm working my way around. And here again, I'm in that situation where I want to yank this pleat that's been passing through everything and turn it into a triangle with a triangle wrap. And I want to reset these pleats in here so that the wrap can then fold through the previous hexagon. And then squash these guys. Squash the triangle on the other side. That was the wrap. And here I'm going to get into the air folded one. I'm going to pull back that double depth pleat that was going through everything. And start setting up my twist on top. And I'm letting this valley for the double depth pleat come down into this area instead of running through things. Because it is actually going into the next mixed depth hexagon. So this is the overlap that I said was less friendly, but you can still set up your triangles on it if you're really aware of your spacing between the triangles and your spacing between these parallel mountain folds. And again, this pleat, I'm going to bring all the way back to triangle wrap down here. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but this is a demonstration, not a tutorial. So I am moving quickly and doing things at my own speed and not using a pen, not stopping to mark all of the references. But that's how we're able to see so much folded in such a short amount of time. Now I'm on my last set of parallel pleats, and there are more of them, as expected. There's always more parallel pleats on the last set as you go around, but we've gotten really far. So this last set, I'm still going to work in the same direction. Hello to everyone just joining. And I'm going to set up these triangle wraps. Yeah. Finding my pleats, alternating double and single depth. And And boy, is that a lot of pleat overlaps. But it's okay. They're all laying off to the side. They're not that bunched up under the twist itself. And got a decently flat surface. It's a bunch of layers in here, not so many layers out here. But we can get that in place. And then squash. And this one I will pull the next pleat also. Put in that triangle wrap. Gotta put this pleat back in place before the pleat from the wrap can go through. And go ahead and untuck that while I'm here. Oh, maybe shouldn't have, but too late. I still have a flat enough surface to squash this triangle, which I do need to squash before getting into this next hexagon. And yeah, that is appropriately feeding in. There's some counting error. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to squash this one in the air because there's a lot of chaos going on down below. And I'll use the bone folder on it later. And now I think I'll be able to squash this one on a flat surface, even with all these other pleats going on, because this one's headed into a triangle wrap. That's going to take the pressure off. Gotta always come back and make sure that the pleats from previous twists are where I want them to be after I've gone and removed a pleat that ran through them. But yeah, that one I can squash on a flat surface, just like the the first twist of the previous sets of parallel plates. It's kind of more on the inside, and these are more on the outside. So that's why you see the difference in the friendliness of the pleat overlaps. And geez, yeah, that pleat I would say has got to go now, but I want to squash this triangle first because that's going to be caught up in the pleat running back through things. And again, reinstating the pleats that were erased. As took things apart, finding that triangle, and once this pleat is reinstated and that plate is reinstated, then the wrap can go through things, and luckily just under that instead of through. And it's time to squash some triangles. And this time I will remember not to do that compound wrap until I've flipped over. And this time I do have to tuck the corner in with it because I already have this triangle over here. It's not going to let me just float it. But once that's squashed, I can do the compound there, and we're heading into another twist on this side, so now I can flatten out everything through here. And deal with this with a triangle wrap, closing in on the last few twists. There's the double depth pleat that's headed into that area. So we get a second air folded one on this set of parallel pleats because it's the last one and there were more pleats. So if I was to do another ring around the center, the first one would not have, well, the first set of parallel pleats might just have one air folded one, the rest of them would have two, and then, oh yeah, can't forget our triangle, and then the final one in the next ring around the center would have three air folded ones, which just is how these sequences roll. And again, opening things up and reinstating the pleat that I interrupted, and going for that triangle wrap here. And it's a nice flat state once the twist is squashed. Yeah, I haven't calculated out how much grid you would need for another ring around the center. This is 64 divisions and has a decent border on it. I've got my crease pattern up. You would need substantially more. Let's see. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4. You would need at least 72 divisions just to get to the next ring around the center, and then you'd need like 80 or something to actually have a border on that. So if you wanted to go for more, if you saw what I did and thought that it was fun and easy, then by all means. So that is the pattern that I'm naming Apple Dapple, because in some sense these mixed up hexagons do look like apples a little bit. So that's all for today. The pattern is complete. For once, I finished a pattern in about an hour, which is about as long as it took to fold the grid, which you might think is slightly depressing, but I'm cool with it. Gridding time for me is also like YouTube time, so it's a relaxing experience. Thanks, Nancy. And let's see if we can get some backlighting on this. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So in the backlighting, these triangle pyramids, you can see the ones in the opposite direction on the back. They become these stars, and we've got these little triangles. Yeah, you're welcome, Stephen. And of course, the other side is the same. All right. Yeah, I'm glad y'all enjoyed it. So just reiterating what I was saying throughout, this is a pattern that's going to be part of Tessellation Academy, the crease pattern for it in December. And actually this is the last of the ones that I needed to fold for the crease patterns for Tessellation Academy for this year through next January. So now I can devote all my folding time, more or less, to Advent of Tess alternate endings for this year, which I have planned out. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. But anyways, this idea of taking a tiling that would usually have regular hexagons and stretching them out into mixed depth hexagons is something that we'll be exploring with rhombus twists in Tessellation Academy next month in April. And then the hexagons and triangles threefold tiling, which is the tiling, the base tiling that I used for this, is the topic of Tessellation Academy in May. So if you want to check that out, training.gatheringfolds.com/academy is the place to go. There's also Tessellation Garden, so if you did want to get this crease pattern earlier than December, it's going to be in Tessellation Garden in the next couple weeks, because I was waiting for this one to do some photography tomorrow. There's going to be a big update. So lots of ways to get your hands on this crease pattern if that's something that you're interested in. So happy folding, everyone, and I'll see you for the next live stream let me think what I have planned. Let's see, last week was a tutorial, so next week probably be talking about a course or another idea. Actually, I think it was connecting tilings to tessellations. So happy folding, everyone, and see you there.